We don't know what they were spending.
That's theft, isn't it?
It's not a good
in Louisiana.
way to spend
we call
federal
that stealing.
Taxpayer dollars.
We call that stealing. Is there any doubt in your mind that a lot of universities are taking this NIH money, which is supposed to be spent on medical research, and using it to fund other parts of their university? Is there any doubt in your mind, Bobby?
Oh, and Senator, the other people who are writing grants, like the Gates Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, they pay 10% to 15% in indirect costs. We were paying 50, 60, 70%.
So, in fact, what you're doing is adding money to medical research.
We will be able to fund many, many, many more studies by eliminating that $9 billion, at least part of that $9 billion cost.
Hello, Patriots. Welcome back to Signal 76, where we cut through the noise and bring you the truth that mainstream media won't tell you. Today, we're diving deep into RFK Jr.'s explosive Senate confirmation hearing that's got Washington insiders shaking in their boots. We're talking about billions in taxpayer waste, government fraud, and one man's mission to drain the swamp at Health and Human Services. Before we get started, make sure you smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, because YouTube doesn't want you seeing this content. Like this video if you're tired of your tax dollars being stolen, and stick around until the end, because I'm going to show you exactly how deep this corruption goes and what it means for every American family.
Senator Kennedy.
Mr. Secretary, how many employees were there at HHS when you took over?
82,000.
How many do you have today?
62,000.
Okay.
It's about the level it was in 2019, right before COVID.
Is this the first time that an institution in America has ever downsized?
I don't think so. I think private and public institutions have
Microsoft just announced that they were going to reduce their workforce by 6,000 people. You think that'll be the end of Microsoft?
Senator, we wouldn't have reduced anybody.
You think that'll be the end of Microsoft?
I don't think so, Senator.
Meta, I still call them Facebook, just announced they're going to reduce their workforce by 3,000 people. You think that'll be the end of Meta?
I imagine it will not.
Yeah. Think maybe the people at Meta know what they're doing?
I think that they do. They make a lot of money, Senator.
Do you hate NIH?
I love NIH. I grew up with NIH. I visited when I was a boy. I love science, and those were my favorite afternoons, visiting the labs at NIH.
Do you hate medical research?
No, I think we need to lead the world in medical research in this country.
In fact, isn't it true, Mr. Secretary, that you would like to see more money spent on medical research?
Obviously, I'm the secretary of this department. No secretary wants to see his budget cut.
Well, one way of doing that, it seems to me, would be to stop some of the stealing. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Let's suppose you give NIH gives a university $100 million to research, for medical research, to research a cure. And that university takes $30 million of it, doesn't spend it on the research. They use it to subsidize the rest of their university. Does that show a commitment to medical research?
No, and I mentioned before the example of Stanford, which was taking 78% in indirect costs, and we don't know what they were spending.
That's theft, isn't it?
It's not a good
in Louisiana,
way to spend
we call
federal
that stealing.
Taxpayer dollars.
We call that stealing. Is there any doubt in your mind that a lot of universities are taking this NIH money, which is supposed to be spent on medical research, and using it to fund other parts of their university? Is there any doubt in your mind, Bobby?
Oh, and Senator, the other people who are writing grants, like the Gates Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, They paid 10% to 15% in indirect costs. We were paying 50, 60, 70%.
So in fact, what you're doing is adding money to medical research,
We will be able to fund many, many, many more studies by eliminating that $9 billion, at least part of that $9 billion cost.
Okay. I want to ask you about LAHEAP. Are you familiar with this GAO report they did on LAHEAP? LAHEAP?
I am not, Senator.
They found, they audited 7 states. They found 11,000 dead people getting LAHEAP grants. You familiar with that?
No, but that is pretty typical of many of the other programs that we're working with.
They found prisoners getting grants, didn't they? Were they using the grants to heat their jail cell? They found 1,000 federal employees getting the grants with federal salaries that greatly exceeded the income limits. They found some of those folks living in $1 million homes. I got 18 seconds. Why do we allow highly processed foods in America?
That's a complicated question, but it's driven by profits, but to a food industry that is making money by poisoning American kids, and they don't do it abroad. They make the same products for Canada and for Europe that do not contain many of those chemicals.
You understand, Mr. Secretary, there's nothing you can do that's going to make many of my Democratic colleagues happy. You get that, don't you?
I do understand. I'm coming to understand that, Senator.
Yes. Thank you.
Senator Murray, welcome. Nice to see you, and I'll turn it over to you for questions.
Thank you very much, Chair Capito, Senator Baldwin. I look forward to working with you both again.
What we witnessed in that hearing room wasn't just politics as usual. It was a masterclass in exposing the deep state's money laundering operation that's been robbing hardworking Americans for decades. Senator Kennedy, God bless him, came armed with receipts and didn't pull any punches. Let's start with the elephant in the room. RFK Jr. just cut 20,000 government jobs at HHS, bringing the workforce from 82,000 down to 62,000. And what did the establishment do? They screamed bloody murder. But here's what they don't want you to know. This brought staffing back to 2019 levels. You know, when America was actually functioning properly before the government grew like a cancer during the pandemic. Kennedy brilliantly pointed out that private companies like Microsoft and Meta are cutting thousands of jobs too. Are they going out of business? Of course not. They're being smart with their resources, something our government hasn't done in decades. But when a patriot like RFK Jr. does it, suddenly it's the end of the world according to the swamp creatures. Now here's where it gets really infuriating. Patriots. Kennedy exposed how universities, these woke indoctrination centers, are literally stealing your money. We're talking about Stanford University taking 78% of NIH research grants in indirect costs. 78%. That's not overhead. That's highway robbery with a diploma. Think about this for a second. You work hard, pay your taxes, and that money is supposed to go toward finding cures for cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, diseases that might affect you or your loved ones. Instead, these ivory tower elites are using your money to fund their woke programs, their diversity coordinators, their climate change nonsense. Meanwhile, private foundations like the Gates Foundation only charge 10 to 15% for the same services. RFK Jr. called it exactly what it is, theft. In Louisiana, as Kennedy said, taxpayer dollars, we call that stealing. And he's absolutely right. This isn't some accounting error or bureaucratic inefficiency. This is systematic theft of American taxpayer money. And it's been going on for years while our representatives did nothing. But wait, it gets worse. The GAO, that's the Government Accountability Office, audited just 7 states and found 11,000 dead people getting energy assistance grants. 11,000. That's not a typo. That's not a mistake. That's organized fraud on a massive scale. They found prisoners getting heating grants, probably to heat their jail cells, as Kennedy sarcastically noted. They found federal employees making 6-figure salaries living in million-dollar homes, collecting benefits meant for low-income families. This is what happens when you have a government that's more interested in virtue, signaling, than actually helping the people who need it. While struggling American families can't heat their homes, government bureaucrats are gaming the system to line their own pockets. And don't even get me started on the processed food industry. RFK Jr. dropped another truth bomb that the establishment doesn't want you to hear. These food companies are literally poisoning our children with chemicals they won't even use in their products sold in Canada and Europe. They know these additives are harmful, but they keep using them here because there's profit in keeping Americans sick and dependent on the healthcare system. This is the swamp in action, Patriots. It's not just about politics. It's about a system designed to extract wealth from hardworking Americans while keeping us unhealthy, uninformed, and dependent. But here's the beautiful thing. We have fighters like RFK Jr. who aren't afraid to call it out. Kennedy's final observation was perfect. You understand, Mr. Secretary, there's nothing you can do that's going to make many of my Democratic colleagues happy. And RFK Jr.'s response? I'm coming to understand that, Senator. That's the sound of a man who knows he's over the target and doesn't care about the political flack. This hearing showed us exactly why the establishment is so terrified of RFK Jr. He's not a typical politician who plays nice with the corruption. He's a disruptor who's willing to cut the fat, expose the fraud, and put America first instead of special interests first. Patriots, this is our moment. This is what draining the swamp actually looks like. Not just talking points and campaign promises, but actual action. Real cuts to government waste, real investigations into fraud, and real accountability for the thieves who've been robbing us blind. But they're going to fight back hard. The universities losing their gravy train, the bureaucrats losing their cushy jobs, the food companies losing their poison profits. They're all going to mobilize against us. We need to be ready. Share this video with everyone you know. Comment below with your thoughts on this massive corruption. Hit that like button to help YouTube's algorithm show this to more patriots. And subscribe to Signal 76 because we're going to keep following this story as RFK Jr. continues to clean house. The swamp is deep, patriots, but the truth is deeper. And with fighters like RFK Jr. in position and watchdogs like Senator Kennedy holding them accountable, we might just have a chance to take our country back from the thieves and liars who've been running it into the ground. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and keep fighting for America. This is Signal 76, and we'll see you in the next one.